Upon hearing this, Harold, who was kneeling on the ground in terror, cried out, "Grandma, tell him the truth! Tell Charlie the truth! If you don't, I'm a dead man, Grandma!" Noah, also terrified of what might happen, quickly pleaded, "Mom, just tell him the truth." This time, Mrs. Wilson finally gave up. Her shoulders slumped in defeat, and she said, "Charlie is right. I did come here to play on your sympathy, to try and trick you into coming back to the Wilson group." After she finished, Mrs. Wilson tried to justify herself, blurting out, "But Charlie cut her off sharply. "No buts. You've said your piece. You can go now." Mrs. Wilson glared at him. "You should at least let me finish." "I have my reasons." Charlie said coldly, "You don't have reasons. You have consequences. You brought this on yourself, and now you have to deal with it." He continued, "If you all know what's good for you, you'll shut your mouths, tuck your tails between your legs, and get out of here. Then we can pretend this never happened. Otherwise—" At this point, Charlie spoke into the phone again. "Orville, if I hear another peep out of Mrs. Wilson, I want you to immediately put a hit on Noah and his son Harold." Orville's voice came through loud and clear. "You can count on it, Mr. Wade. I'll do exactly as you say." Mrs. Wilson was completely dejected. She nodded, accepting her defeat. She motioned to the others and said weakly, "Let's go." Noah, Harold, and Wendy, who had been quiet this whole time, quickly helped her up, and they all hurried out of the hospital room. After they left, Jacob let out a long, sad sigh. "I really thought my mother had finally come to her senses," he said, "but I guess it was all just a scheme in the end." Elaine complained, "If the Wilson group goes under, we won't get our retirement money." Claire looked at Charlie and said softly, "Charlie, thank you. If you hadn't warned me, I might have fallen for it." Charlie smiled. "I'm your husband. You don't have to be so formal with me." He then added, "Let your dad rest here in the hospital for a few days. I'll take care of him. You should focus on getting your company up and running. Don't let the Wilson family look down on you." Claire nodded eagerly and said with determination, "I know. I'll give it everything I've got." When Mrs. Wilson returned home, she was in a daze, on the verge of collapsing. Who would have thought that just a short time ago, thanks to their partnership with the Grand Group, she had been hosting a huge banquet at a fancy hotel, the talk of the town. But in the blink of an eye, the Wilson family was left high and dry, on the verge of bankruptcy. The Grand Group had not only pulled their partnership, but had also blacklisted the Wilson Group. Now the Wilson Group had lost all its business, and the company was completely out of money. At the same time, the company was facing a mountain of expenses. There was the rent for the group's office buildings, salaries for everyone from the top down, payments owed to their construction contractors, and the bills from their material suppliers. Now the Wilson Group was like a sinking ship, taking on water faster than they could bail. To make matters worse, Wendy, her most cherished granddaughter, had lost her chance to marry Gerald White. Now the White family was giving the Wilsons the cold shoulder. Their last potential lifeline was gone. Thinking of this, tears welled up in Mrs. Wilson's eyes. For years her late husband had run the company, but she never imagined she would be the one to run it into the ground. If this continued, they wouldn't just lose the company, they'd be buried in a mountain of debt. By then, they'd even lose this old mansion. And it was all because of her own selfishness. If she hadn't been so determined to seize the villa the White family gave to Charlie, would Jacob and Claire have ever broken away from them? If Claire hadn't left the Wilson Group, would the Grand Group have ever turned against them? Her eldest son, Noah, was also at his breaking point. The family business was in ruins. His daughter's future was destroyed. His son had no prospects, and Charlie was constantly humiliating them. He desperately wanted to do something to turn things around, but he couldn't see a single ray of hope. Wendy had been sobbing uncontrollably ever since she got back. her cries heartbreaking to hear, and it tore him up inside. He couldn't stop himself from asking his mother, "Mom, is there any hope left for the Wilson family?" Tears streamed down Mrs. Wilson's face as she said painfully, "There's nothing we can do. If we don't declare bankruptcy, the debts will crush us." Noah's voice cracked. "Mom, can't you call some old friends? See if someone can invest some money in the Wilson Group to help us get through this?" "Investment?" Mrs. Wilson let out a bitter laugh. "Now that the Grand Group has blacklisted us, who would be brave enough to invest their money? All those old friends are dodging my calls. I see it all clearly now. There are no such things as friends in this world. It's all just business, about what you can get from someone." Harold said angrily, "Grandma, if it's all about benefits and there are no real friends, then what about that piece of trash Charlie? How did he get so many powerful people to be his friends? They all give him so much respect, calling him Mr. Wade. What benefits could he possibly offer them?" Mrs. Wilson said with a sigh, "That Charlie, don't let his poor and useless exterior fool you. He's surprisingly good at spinning stories and talking nonsense. I heard the only reason those important people are so polite to him is because he's tricked them into thinking he's some kind of fortune teller. They're all a bunch of fools, no different from some cheap roadside psychic." Harold asked, confused, "Then why do so many important people believe him?" Mrs. Wilson replied, "They believe him because no one has exposed his tricks yet. He's like one of those old-time con artists. They're experts at bluffing people and tricking everyone. They have them fooled for a little while, but once people come to their senses and see the truth, those guys are exposed as the frauds they are, and everyone turns on them." Speaking of this, Mrs. Wilson said with a cold expression, "In my opinion, Charlie will slip up soon enough. When those powerful people realize he's tricked them, they'll tear him to pieces and feed him to the dogs." Harold's eyes lit up with excitement. I can't wait to see Charlie get fed to the dogs," Mrs. Wilson said with a bitter look on her face. "Exactly. Don't you worry, that day will come." While the Wilson family was inside crying and cursing Charlie, two sleek Moveras slowly pulled up to the curb in front of the Wilson villa. Right away, 6 bodyguards in black suits stepped out of the 2 cars. One of them opened the back door of the second car, and a middle-aged man in his 50s stepped out. The man was dressed impeccably in a custom-tailored suit from Britain, and he had a friendly look about him. As the man got out of the car, he held a thick book that looked like a family history and asked his assistant, "Is this the Heiress Hill Wilson family?" The assistant nodded. "Yes, Mr. Wilson. I confirmed it with the Social Security Administration. This is the Heiress Hill Wilson family." "Okay." The middle-aged man nodded, looking at the house with a thoughtful expression. "I didn't expect the Heiress Hill Wilson family to be in such a sorry state. They really are our poor relations." The assistant said quickly, "Mr. Wilson, maybe we shouldn't go in. It could be a hassle getting involved with these people." The man waved his hand dismissively. "Even though the Heiress Hill Wilsons and our family share the same surname, we're practically strangers. My father told me a story. During the war, their family saved his life. Before he died, he always wanted to find them and thank them in person, but he was bedridden and never got the chance. He made me promise I would come here for him to fulfill that wish. He even had me update our family tree to include them." The assistant asked, curious, "Mr. Wilson, what's the story behind that?" The man explained. "The Wilsons lived together in a single town. Then the enemy came, and the war started. Everyone ran for their lives. While they were escaping, my father was hit by a stray bullet and almost died. It was their great-grandfather who carried my father on his back and got him to safety." "Wow," the assistant exclaimed. "So there's a real connection there. Yes, the middle-aged man sighed. All right, go knock on the door. Inside the Wilson family house, the entire family was sitting together, crying miserably. When the doorbell rang, Noah quickly wiped his tears and went to answer it. When he saw a man a few years older than him with a confident air standing on his doorstep, flanked by 6 bodyguards and with 2 expensive Moveras parked at the curb, he knew this was someone important. He couldn't help but ask, "Can I help you?" The middle-aged man smiled slightly. "Are you a descendant of the Wilson family?" Noah nodded without thinking. "Yes, my last name is Wilson. Is something wrong?" The man introduced himself. "Hello, my name is Curtis Wilson. I'm the head of the Eastcliff Wilson family." "The Eastcliff Wilson family?" Noah asked, surprised. "What does that mean? I've never heard of you." The middle-aged man smiled. "Our families go way back." Noah asked in surprise, "You're a Wilson too?" "Yes." Curtis nodded. "I'm here today mostly to fulfill a promise I made to my father before he died. I wanted to come to your home and thank your father in person. And I also hope to get to know you all." As he spoke, he pulled a business card from his pocket and handed it to Noah. "This is my card." Noah took the card, glanced at it, and his jaw dropped. Curtis Wilson, chairman of the Altura Group? The Altura Group was a massive, publicly traded corporation. A wave of excitement washed over Noah. "Oh, you're Mr. Curtis Wilson. Of course, I've heard so much about you. It's an honor," he said hurriedly. Then he quickly explained, "Mr. Wilson, what was the connection between your father and mine? My father, the old head of our family, passed away more than 3 years ago." Curtis Wilson sighed. "Oh, that's truly a shame. My own father just passed away last year. Right before he died, he was still talking about wanting to see the man who saved his life. I had no idea your father had already passed on."